Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Melissa Muir. I have received a lot of requests and questions when it comes to hammer hand pieces. So in this video, I want to show you two of the hammer hand pieces that I use here in my studio from Foredom. Foredom offers a couple of different hammer hand pieces. The first one is going to be for my flex shaft. Now you'll see that I have two of them here. However, one has a duplex spring while one does not. And so that's going to help me with comfort and maybe a little bit of usability. The other one is going to be a micromotor. So the two operate just a little bit differently, so I'll show you both of those. First thing I need is a piece of jewelry that we are going to use for this demonstration. So this is similar to what I want to create. So there's a bail, I have a stone, and that's what we're going to be doing. So I have a couple of pieces ready, and right now I have taped up the back of them, and that is so that I can use a product called Thermalock and keep it from sticking to my piece. The next thing that I'm going to need are some Anvil Points. Now there's a variety of Anvil Points that you can get from Foredom, and what you need to realize is that when you get these, they're blanks. So it might have some sharp edges, it might just have this weird black surface to it, and it is meant for you to alter so that you can use it in whichever way you want. So in this case, I have rounded this and I've rounded it this direction as well. And then I've put not a full polish, but a polish up to about 400 grit. I don't want to go to a full polish on these because I don't want them slipping off of my metal. Now there's something that you need to know about the hammer hand pieces. They should never go over 5,000 RPM. And so if you've got a motor that's like an SR motor or a TX motor, those are going to go from 18,000 or 15,000 RPM, which will burn out your handpiece really quickly. The LX motor is wonderful for these because it has a maximum of 5,000 RPM as well as being high torque, which will give us a stronger hammer hit. Now there is a little bit of maintenance that you need to do on these. So there's this little tiny small hole, and what I have here is just an oiler. This has a little hypodermic needle on it, and every now and then, depending on how often I'm using this, I need to give this just one drop of oil in there, and that's going to help lubricate things. Now if I have a duplex spring, I have one more thing that needs to be oiled, and so I'm just going to bring this in up here. Again, one little drop of oil right there on that duplex spring. So it's been a little minute since I've done mine, so I'll just give those each a nice little loving drop of oil. When you're dealing with the hammer hand piece micromotor, it's going to automatically control how fast it goes, so I don't necessarily have that same type of issue of going too fast. Now, I do have the ability to change how strong my hit is or my stroke, and so there's just this little collet right here, and you can twist that to make it so that it's a stronger or a lighter hit. And that is also going to be the same here on the flex shaft version. So again, just tightening or loosening this little collar. Now when it comes to shaping and polishing these, I have a number of videos already out on YouTube, so make sure you check out those videos. I'll also link them in the description. To remove and install an anvil point, the handpiece and anvil points will come with this little steel pin. There is a hole in the base of the anvil point, and you just insert that through there, and you're going to give it a little twist to loosen it up, and then you can pull this out. The next thing I'm going to do is just twist in the next one, and once I've got that into position, it's not enough to just hand tighten that, because as we get that vibration, it can knock itself loose. So I'm going to again put that pin in here, and I'm just going to give a nice little snug twist, not too tight, but enough to ensure that this is now installed nice and securely. So I now have my back plate mounted. Now you'll notice that I do not currently have a bail on that. And the reason that I don't have a bail on this is because I'm going to be riveting into place a bail. But if I were to set this rivet right now, I would not be able to get to my bezel because it's such a tight fit. So here I want to set my stone first, and then I will get my bail put into place afterwards. I've now secured this into some Thermalock, and now it's time to place my stone in here. So next thing I need to do is attach my handpiece. I like to get my flex shaft going just a little bit, and then it will help me guide that into the right place, and then I can snap that in. And now we're ready to come in and set our stone. So in this case, I have created kind of a bezel rocker shape, and I'm just going to work my way around the stone. But anytime I have a point, I want to set that point first. You'll also need to make certain that it's not too tight right there, because the last thing we want to do is crack our stone right there. So very first thing I'm going to do is just come in and begin to move that metal in right there, just right up against the stone, right at that point. Okay, so now that that is set, I'm going to work the opposite end, so down here at the bottom, and then I'll come and work the two sides, just like I do any other normal shaped stone. Anytime I have points, I want to make sure I set those points very first. So if I had 4, then I would have set 4 of them. If I had 2, then I would have set the 2 sides first. Okay, so now I've got 4 different points already set on this, and now I can begin to either, depending on how open or how much space I have, I can come in and fill in these spaces that close up these air pockets a little bit. And now I'm pretty comfortable with how everything fits. The thing I like about the hammer handpiece on the flex shaft is that it immediately actuates as soon as I push on my pedal. That means that I can get this going and then just bring it in and gently touch the bezel, and it will push that down for me. So here I'm going to start at one side, and I'm going to go really slow. And some people go really fast. I like to go a little slower and a little more controlled. It depends on how you want to work on it. And here I'm just going to bring this around and continue to push this up against my stone, being careful to only hit the metal and not the stone itself. And now I've gone all the way around. And from here, I could go back around again and just tighten things up and make sure everything is set up down. Okay, and now my stone is set. From here, I can take this over to my engraving station and bright cut my stone, and then I would be ready to put my bail on. For this one, I'm going to use the Micromotor, and the Anvil point that I'm using is rounded. Now this started off and it was just completely flat, and so I've taken it and I've rounded it all the way around. You can use like a file and your rotary tool, or even sandpaper, and you can reshape it however you need to on there. And so that's kind of how I did this one, to reshape this to make it so it had a nice even round surface. So this is going to be kind of like an embossing hammer for me. But then again, what I'm going to do is just work my way around that bezel and lay everything down nice and smooth. Now if you remember, I said that they work a little differently between the Micromotor and the one that is meant for the flex shaft. And what I'm really talking about is how they actuate. So how the hammer portion of this works. When I use the one for the flex shaft, it just automatically goes back and forth. However, the one for the Micromotor is a little bit different. I can push this and there is no movement here whatsoever until I actually push, and then that hammer will actuate. This is really good if you are working with something like prongs. I don't really like it so much for bezels because then I always have to have that pressure on there. However, it still works. So just like when you are using the one for the flex shaft, the Anvil points are installed the exact same way. We're just going to use that little pin to give it a nice little tighten right there, and then we're ready. So this is an oval stone kyanite, which is a little softer. So again, I need to be cautious to not hit the stone itself, and I'm going to place this into position first wherever I want it, although it doesn't matter if I have the machine going or not, because again, nothing actuates until I actually push it. Again, I'm just going to go ahead and lay down a couple of areas around my stone. And then I will work again these different areas, and I work opposite sides of my stone. And once I have that, now I can begin at one spot and just roll my way around the stone. All right, once I've made my way around the stone, I can check to see if there's any pockets. One question that people always ask me is, does this leave a texture? Yes, because we are still doing a hammer and a punch type of motion. So yes, you can see there is a little bit of texture right there around that rim, and that will polish easily. Or you can take a burnisher and go around that. And then from there, I will also take my graver and do a nice, beautiful, bright cut around the rim of that stone as well. So those are the two hammer hand pieces that I use in my studio from Foredom. I like that LX motor. It gives me a nice strong hit, but again, I can loosen that up. I also prefer the hammer hand piece for the Foredom in my case when I'm setting bezels, because it will automatically actuate that. I really like the hammer hand piece for my prongs or when I need to move just a wire or something like that, because I can get it into position and then actuate it as I push on that. I hope that answers some of the questions that you have when it comes to the hammer hand pieces. If you have more, as always, just put those down in the comment section and we'll get back to you. Please, if you like the videos, make sure you give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring that bell so that you don't miss any notifications. And I'll see you guys in the next video.